Well, it's been properly ages, hasn't it? So nice to see you again. Now hopefully that I've managed some of my storage space in the crappy little Kindle that's recorded this. You know, we might actually get a nice video done. So first off, now I haven't got to think about like a 2-minute limit. I'll give a shout out to everybody that's joined me while I've been on this tour of hotels and guest houses in the south of England. So Zippy, big shout out to you, my friend, nice to meet you. Carlos number 27 is an absolutely brand new one, and I found him because I was looking for details on the Encore Hunter 644, and you know what, like, there's one dude on YouTube, one dude pretty much, and he uses one of these. It's got a lot of, like, I think it's either a different edition or something that's been like upgraded later on, because all the hardware's chrome. But yeah, so maybe between me and Malko we might have the monopoly on YouTube videos about the Encore 644 series, because there is nothing that I could find anyway. And in fact, you know what, we might as well plug this in and start. In fact, no, we'll get a reference sound first. So yeah, one of the things, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you can see it fine, and you can see how big it is now. That's my hand up against it. Okay, so this thing is tiny, right? One of the things I got when I was first, like, out of the studio, which I'm still sad about. I miss that place. I loved it there. I was really happy there. But I think if you've stuck around and like watched all the videos, you know kind of what the situation is. But like I say, everything's amicable. Right? Anyway, so being in a situation whereby one has to sort of like set up quite light, I started off using the little orange amp, as you saw probably in the early videos, but it not having like a auxiliary input. Its size is perfect, but having no auxiliary input. And when I bought it, it was because I thought it did have one, and that was for nighttime practice at the time. You know, when you have you know, your drum machine going into it and your headphones going into it, and so that's why I got this. But it's actually a modelling amp. Now it has 6 amp models, and these are Clean Warm, Clean Bright, Crunch, Super Crunch, OD1 and OD2. And really what they translate as is unusually artificially bright clean. No, hang on, let's get this right. Nice fendery clean, unusually artificially bright clean, which is pretty much unusable. A very sort of small box 50 JTM 45 area brown sound, a more modern Marshally sound, a more modern sort of somewhere between a 5150 and a 6505 sound, and lastly a fairly unusable high gain thing, which is sort of enveloped in a way that's sort of like a cocked wah. So you can use it. It's good for solos and articulation. But that's about it. They in the manual or the leaflet, they hint that it's best used for sort of tight metal rhythm, but I didn't find that at all. It's useless for tight metal rhythm. But yeah, so you've got the 6 amp models, and with there's no EQ. You've got this ISF knob, which is sort of like the contour on a Marshall, but more usable. And they say it goes from British to American sounds. I don't know what they mean by that. A sort of more mid-focused, you know, like at one end, and more airy and open on the other end, I guess. And then you have like 3 banks of effects, but it's really simple. You've got 3 knobs, 3 buttons and 2 knobs. Effect on off 3 times, and then, you know, rate and mix basically. So it's like really easy to throw a sound together. Now I am running into other stuff, but let's bypass that for the moment. Get the volume up a bit so you can actually hear it. Right, so we're in crunch sound, right? Turn the gain up all the way. So, and God, so I'm in a guest house. I can't play that loud. Right, I can't do it. But that's the gain all the way. So let me just show you the effects. So let's go for in fact, so you've heard the sound of this bridge pickup. Now let's quickly hear the sound of the encore. Yeah, man, got an awesome bit of kit. Watch out for this thing. So that's the humbucker there, right? It's quite sort of like sort of percussive and plinky, right? Interesting. So, right, so just quickly with these effects then. So reverb, I hit the reverb button. I've got option 1, 2, 3, 4 on the rotary. And like, so you've got a knob, and then it's positioned around the clock face. It's like where you hit number 1, the space between like 1 and 0 is like how much of the effect. So say like I go for effect number 2, there's number 2. If I wind it back, that's half the amount of the effect. I know that sounds like ridiculous, but there it is. So let's give it some spring reverb, number 3, put it to about half the amount, and then the mix level of the effects, we put on 11 o'clock, and this is what you get. Alright, so we can add some modulation into that, and let's give it some auto wah, because I like that. Give it a bit more so you can really hear it. Alright, and then finally a bit of delay, and might as well get rid of the others just so we can hear the delay on its own. It's got a tap button there. So you get the idea. There's a really nice sort of version of the Space Echo as well. I'm going to whack that on, and it's like I'll put it on infinite repeat just so you can get the gist of it. And it's like a proper like multi-head like Space Echo type of idea. Nice, eh? Let me turn that down a little. So yeah, so the thing was like I think it was like about £100. I actually can't remember. I could look through my receipts, and it was another thing that I got from Absolute Music, and Absolute Music were brilliant. Like they were absolutely brilliant. So I think it was I've got a feel it might have been. I think it might have been something like £118. That's the number that sticks in my head. But I'll have a quick look from the receipt. But weighs nothing, and as I say, it's like this tiny thing, but it does it all. Although it doesn't model amps in the same way as the Vox does. It's not like it. It's not like it models. It's not like you can sit and model a specific amp in the same way. It was £125 actually, and it's it's a 2x3 inch speaker. I mean, pathetic little speakers. You think they're no good, and it's 10 watts. But I tell you what, it's amazing, and it does that thing that a good modern telly does, a television does, not a Telecaster. Whereas you sort of if you sat dead centre, you can hear things coming from all right out, like either side. If you sat one side to it, it throws it one side. If I'm sat the other, it'll sort of throw that side. So it's like a really interesting amp just for practice in the room, because it does these sort of wacky things. But it's been a really good. I've really liked it. I'd say that if you're someone that just doesn't really care about all the geekery and Anaraki nonsense of emulating a Vox or emulating a Princeton or some shit like that, this is the sort of mod thing you should go for, because this is way more sort of songwriter focused. I was attracted to these because my favourite channel, guitar related content on YouTube, is that Premier Guitar Channel's Rig Rundown. I love that, and I've learned so much more from that, from watching sort of how does Kerry King set up his rig? How does Gary Holt set up his rig? How does Kirk Hammett set up his rig? How does Dave Gilmour set up his rig? Jeff Beck. Brian May was a really good one. He really knows his business. I mean, it's really good to get into real world players' rigs. Because I tell you what's interesting, it's on the sort of fake world of YouTube and the guitar forums, it's whatever's older's better, and it's you'll hear things that people say but John Lennon played a Futurama, and stuff like that. It's but the moment he was John Lennon, he didn't. He played Gibsons and Rickenbackers and Fenders. It was it's what real world players, where price isn't really an object. It's not important, and actually neither's logo that much. It's what does the job. It's their tool for earning money, right? And what they use is very interesting. Just even in the way, even when you get past the sort of, they're sponsored by such and such, so they're bound to use them. It's okay, well then how do they configure it? Do they use a single coil? Do they use a humbucker? How many? In what order? With what bridge? All those things, because once you start being able to sort of have the pick of how you want your guitar and price not be involved, that's when your real nature comes out of what you're actually about. and so yeah, with things like rigs and stuff, backline is something that can't be faked. And if they're using like amp generated drive, which most people aren't, but if they are, then that's always interesting to see. And a lot of them still do, actually. I mean, when I worked for Dennis Greaves of 9 Below Zero, you know, he was still using like completely amp generated drive and could do it no other way, could find no other way of satisfactorily doing it. And so his use of like Fender Bassmans and Marshalls, 50-watt Marshalls, you know, was something that was worth studying. So yeah, what real people use and get real results is much more interesting to me than what any YouTuber has to say. And why are they on YouTube anyway? You know, if they're making music and they're sort of like using it to sort of promote their music, then I guess I understand them. But if not, I kind of wonder like what they're doing. With the very exception of a few channels that I really like, whereby their pure love of guitars of all kinds seems to override anything. But I soon get tired when people start slagging stuff off needlessly or without true knowledge of what they're talking about. That bothers me. But when it's like pure objective love of the guitar, then that's a knowledge and a joy that I can share. But I find a lot of YouTube channels infuriating because they're nobody and they're sort of trying to talk to you with authority. Just like I am right now. Massive hypocrite. But anyway, I'm sorry. It's been too long. What I'm trying to say is that I get more out of Rig Rundown than anything. You know, Scotty and of Anthrax and Gary Holt both just done quite new ones, and you know, having just got back online, like they were the first things I sucked up. I watched them twice. I watched both of those twice before I watched anybody else in guitar YouTube once. That, you know, that's because, you know, it's up to you, you know, kind of what you watch, isn't it? And it's like, that's that. And I'm sorry that you're just watching a still screen of this sterile hotel room without me really going on. Anyway, watching Rig Rundown, all these metal bands that I love, everybody, you know, Priest, Maiden, Megadeth, the fucking works, right? When they're practicing in the bus or in the dressing room or whatever, nearly always it's one of these. I kept seeing them crop up. Keiko Loreo was using one. And I thought, well, that's it then, you know, like, because there's a guy who fucking knows how to make a guitar sound, and really crosses the gamut, you know. And I noticed he takes it all with him on the road in a compact unit, his own signature Ibanez, a Les Paul, and a Strat, and a flamenco guitar, a steel strung acoustic, and this Black Stars, and I thought, wow. Anyway, so I went to Absolute Music and I tried a few different amps out, and I love Fender amps, that's where I'm at, and they had the little Champ there, the little baby Champ 20, and that had all the features I was looking for, which actually was just a few amp sounds, at least one good clean one, and auxiliary input and headphone output, you know, not much, not demanding much, but some specific things. I tried a little Peavey, and what was the other one? I can't remember. Was it a Vox? Anyway, this was by leaps and bounds the best. It was the most interesting. I didn't like that it didn't have an EQ at first, and it almost wrote it off straight away. But then when I sort of whittled it down to this and the Fender, I was sort of going across, and to be honest, you can't really. This has a good sound. It has like a wide open sound anyway. That word transparent, you know, it's like it's a very like naked tone. It's you know, it's just all there. It's like right where you should be, and so you can't really fuck it up. You can sort of turn that knob, but you can only screw with the sound so much, and so you can't fuck it up. And I thought that's kind of interesting. So nothing sounds overly bright, nothing sounds overly dull, right? With the Fender, that had your traditional EQ section, although it's only 2 band on that, it's only bass and treble, but that was enough that you could destroy a sound or totally overharsh it. So it's like interesting. So I thought, you know, forget it, it doesn't really matter then, because I thought EQ would be, you know, I'm a bloody I'm a geek, you know, I'm a tone geek, so no tone control. Forget it, forget it. But actually, no, like, you know, it's one of those times. Like with certain pedals, you know, certain drive pedals, where they just don't get, you know, we're not going to give you the opportunity to fuck this sound up, you know. The absolute opposite of that, of course, being something like a Metal Zone, which gives you loads of room to fuck the sound up, and operates within a sort of reasonably narrow window of what sounds good, in my eye. So it's like you've got these 4 tone controls, essentially, because you've got like a parametric and a high and a low, right? And the parametric is like frequency selector and plus or minus, right? That's what the 2 knobs of a parametric are. It's like you select your frequency and then it's plus or minus, right? And so within the scope of possibilities of that, with a treble and bass control, you know, there's massive room there. But the thing is, like, where it sounds good is, for me anyway, within a very relatively narrow window, because all the years I've been using an MT2, which is since its introduction, right? It was a brand new pedal when I first got one. Like, I have found that I've wandered very little, okay, in the actual way I set it up. And I always try different things, like I'll always start from scratch, or I've done it blind, and it's like, you know, it's like it's within a relatively narrow window of like good operating frequencies. Whereas with something like the Metal Core, another pedal of theirs, well, you can't really adjust it. Well, actually, no, that's not true on that one. Let me think of one then. Well, on this, you can't like, you know, it's in that relatively narrow window of operating frequency. And you can only basically tone shape it a little bit from there. Sticker was still running, yeah, 22 minutes and 22 seconds. Very fluky moment to look at the clock. So look at that, long form video. So yeah, so that's been a really good purchase. It's the Black Star ID Core 10 V3. And it was 125 quid. Worth every penny. And like I say, it weighs nothing. You can get a little thing called a PB1, which is a little black box which slips on the back and turns it into a portable amp that you can go and take up to the hills or into the tent at a festival, you know. And with those effects, you know, so it's basically got, you know, so it's got like 3 knobs for effects, and then you've got 2 knobs on each effect, right? And whichever one's green is the one that you're adjusting, right? Yeah. So it's a relatively simple setup, but you've got everything there within that small setup. Everything is there. I don't think there's another amp that size. Well, there probably is. You've got the Spark and all that, but yeah, 125 quid. And so in the same time, you've seen me get the Telecaster. I've been playing this to death. I've already done a video on this, but never mind. This can always get some love. I'm thinking I might take a cover off of that. And something I keep forgetting to point out is it's got like these tuning heads. Oh, there was this idiot called Ike's Guitar, and I watched his review of this. And it was like, yeah, it's really good, and I won't play it though, and I'll have background music going, and like it's got cheap tuners, and you should change the pickups. Okay, Ike, why should I change the pickups? What is it wrong with the pickups that I should change them? I mean, it was the worst guitar review I've ever seen. And this guy's got like as many bloody subscribers as Malko. He's got like coming up to 3,000. And you know, well, Malko like knows what he's talking about for the most part. And like this dude clearly doesn't. And he doesn't even play his bloody guitar. Malko plays his guitar, and that's one of the reasons I like watching this. I like watching and listening to his playing. You know, the reason I like Malko's channel so much, I've gone on so much, it's like spending time with a mate. That's why you all watch him. You know, it's like he's like someone that we know. I mean, we don't, but it's like, well, most of us don't. But it's like, you know, he's like a genuine, like relatable human being, like another guitarist like us that just loves the gear, talks about the gear, wants to know all he can, into what he's into. You know, it's like, but like he doesn't, you know, if he says something's bad, he'll tell you why. That's the thing, right? If I tell you something's bad, I'll tell you why. Usually, if I tell you something's good, I'll tell you why. These tuners are good, I'll tell you why. Because they're quite low geared, so they're very precise. And they're sealed back, like a cheap tuner, as Ike Guitar points out, Ike's Guitar, whatever it is, dickhead. And it's split top, which is a really thoughtful feature. Not only that, right? These are graduated. So this one is the longest. These four are a little bit less long, and this one is less long still, or the opposite. I better check that. And the idea is so you don't have to use a string tree, right? It's like, yeah. Now, like the I can't remember what it's called, graduated tuners. That, you know, that's quite an expensive feature. Like, that's to be commended on a 200 quid guitar. As for the pickups, they're ceramic humbuckers. There's nothing wrong with them. They're perfect for the guitar. They're bright, but they're warm. Now, if I got on stage and they started to whistle and whatnot, then maybe I'll talk about changing them. But in the bedroom... Now, a microphonic pickup isn't a bad thing, actually, in and of itself. That means it's letting an awful lot of the sound through, right? Which gives it a really wide definition, right? Top and bottom, okay? Right, it's not a bad thing in the bedroom. It's only when you get up on stage and you start winding everything up that they'll start howling and, you know, all that. So you're going to get a lot of handling noise as well. But in the bedroom, in the studio, that's not a bad thing, okay? At low volume, you know, as long as you're not standing 10 feet from a Marshall head wound, you know, dimed all the way across, then, you know, a microphonic pickup's going to be a hassle, unless you want a sonic youth and you use that. So, you know, I object to people just saying out of hand, oh, these pickups are crap, you should change them. Well, why? Why? You know, tell me why. And that's the only reason I say we'd change these, is if, like, well, you just wanted to spend the money on a guitar that you liked, if you just wanted to upgrade it for the pure bloody sake of it, or if you found these in some way lacking, and I don't think you will. Like, you know, they're not the most, like, completely sophisticated pickup ever made, but they're far from bad. They're, yeah, and they're voiced very well for the guitar. I'm not in any rush to change them myself, and I absolutely really do want to do something to this to make it mine, and there's nothing that, you know, I'm going to end up changing the knobs or something, or putting a white tip on it or something just to make it mine, but there's nothing I actually want to change, and that's one of the great things about this wonderful axe for 200 quid. I mean, the form and fit is so precise, everything, the quality control is so good, and it's little thoughtful features, you know, like, you know, tusk nut and all that, really dense timbers, you know. I can't criticise it, and all those same things and some, you know, with the Jazzmaster. I mean, you know, this one's got like the low profile neck plate, it's roasted maple, you know, really big block on the trem. It's like they've gone thoughtful things. They haven't cheaped out at every opportunity, you know. It's like they've actually, I think it's an exceptionally fair price for the guitar. And with this one now, I spouted a load of bollocks the other day about this, saying, oh, this one's solid, the Gretsch is laminated. Yeah, whatever, this is laminated also. And in fact, the Gretsch probably has it over this, because the Gretsch is laminated maple, and this is laminated sapelli, or whatever the fuck you call it. And I have to say, I would go for the Gretsch on that. I would go laminated maple over sapel. It's just in practice in the shop, this was better. This is called a Gibraltar Performer, this bridge, and it's quite hefty and very adjustable. Oh, that's my dinner going. Yeah, and with this sort of like easy access, quick release or whatever it is bridge, it's a really good two pieces of hardware. I still haven't taken the plastic back off the tuners. But yeah, so I was talking nonsense there. They're both of similar construction. The Gretsch is actually of better woods on paper. So I must retract that, and I apologise to Gretsch for blackening their name, or to Ibanez for like blowing smoke up their arse without knowing what I was talking about. Now I can honestly say I must give a shout out to the Ibanez Wiki fan site, which is just fucking amazing. It's like Reddit for Ibanez. It's like every single thing that you know, every single thing I could want to know about this guitar, I found out. Everything. Oh, the fretboard, which I've had trouble getting used to, is made of walnut. Because this is a 2022 guitar, and it's on the serial number, it's a walnut fretboard. So yeah, which is another thing as well, looking through the specs and how this has changed since like 2011, like this has been like made in so many different ways. It's been from China, now it's from Indonesia, you know, it's had mahogany neck, it's had like rosewood and laurel and what was the other one, Neato fretboards, dyed New Zealand pine or something, treated New Zealand pine. So all manner of materials all over this thing, and all manner of fittings and fixtures and humbuckers, completely different humbuckers. You know, it used to have like Archiecat humbuckers, now they're Infinity R. I mean, it's like, you know, so that when you're, you know, for other guitar reviewers out there, always keep abreast of like the changes year on year, because like, well, I mean, I guess it's self-explanatory that a Squire Strat from 20 years ago isn't like a Squire Strat now. I mean, the affinities have changed massively, haven't they? And for the better. And like that Ibanez, it's like things move all over the place. So yeah, maybe you did try one of those Ibanez Archcore out in 2012, but that doesn't really have much relevance in 2022. Like, so things do change. So but yeah, anyway, I think that'll do it. So this is so I'm in the new guest house. It's really nice. I'm right by the beach. I'll show you that soon. I'm happy as Larry. Everything's fine. Look at this. Found it in the road. See you later.